Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, a show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And the ultimate job interview is back. Dana White's Contender Series Week 8 is here, and we've got 5 fights to break down on this card. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Val Venus. I'm just kidding. It's Carlos, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, ladies. What's happening, guy?
And kicking things off in the first fight on this card, we have Paulo da Silva taking on Rashad Vajabov. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this first matchup?
In this one, I'm going with Vagabov. Um, he's pretty competent on his feet, good enough to not get hurt and stand up, and good enough to use it to close the distance. He's got good wrestling, good submissions. He's got a lot of finishes by submissions as well. After the takedown, he has good ground control on his opponent, so he could either start to, start to work the phase to look step by step for the submission, set traps, or he could just do a little ground and pound. He's got very good balance on top. De Silva, he's more of a counter fighter. He's got better striking. Doesn't look like he's going to take your head off with his strikes, but it looks like he's trying to be very accurate, and he's trying to be very measured, not overthrow, not too much power, not a lot of big pop on it. But if you don't see it coming, he has tagged people in the past. Takedown defense needs some work. Saw a fight. He was going up against, I want to say his name was Hugo Paiva, and Paiva could have taken him down whenever he felt like it. And as he did, De Silva was able to get back up. If I were Paiva, I would have just taken him back down again. But Paiva also wanted to look like the more dominant on the feet, where he was actually getting beat. So I would say a key to victory for Vagabov would be to get De Silva down if he can control him down there, because De Silva was able to get back up. If he's able to keep him down there, make him stay down there, make him work, start beating him up, throw some elbows, throw some knees to the body while he's down there, force the submissions, make him change positions and catch him in a vulnerable spot, possibly on his way back to his feet. That's what I think he should do, because if it stays on the feet, I think De Silva is going to be able to, I don't want to say pick him apart, because Vagabov is actually pretty quick with his strikes. He is going to have a little bit more success, De Silva on the feet. So I'm gonna go with Vagabov. I think he's going to be able to, being a one of the students of Khabib Nurmagomedov, I think he's going to be able to keep this guy down and get the decision.
Yeah, 2 for Rashid here, Rajabov, however you're saying that name. But with Silva, I question the level of competition for a start. 9 of his 11 wins are coming via submission. When you watch tape on him, he's pretty content to be on his back, throwing up, triangles and arm bars and look for the submission overall. And ultimately, 23 years old, I don't necessarily trust him. I think the level of competition is questionable here. I think this matchup's really just designed for a guy that's very dangerous off of his back against a guy in Vajabov, who's obviously got that high-level wrestling. So we know Vajabov is going to look to get this fight to the ground. And one of the things that I did find a little bit funny as well, maybe it's funny just because I have a stupid sense of humor, but De Silva obviously trains over at Charles Oliveira Gold Team, not to be confused with silver or bronze. It is the Gold Team that he trains with. Never heard of that team before, not shoot to box, but obviously throwing up submissions and laying on your back is not always, and has been proven in MMA now, not to be the best path to victory. If you're being dominated on the ground by a good wrestler, and which should be in this matchup with Vajabov, you're going to be on your back the whole entire fight. That's not a path to victory unless you get a Hail Mary submission. When you watch Vajabov, he does a good job of being competent on the feet, obviously shining in the wrestling, as Carlos mentioned, the protege of Khabib Nurmagomedov. And obviously in fights, he has a good path to victory in this particular fight to be able to implement that wrestling. He does a good job of throwing shots upstairs, getting the defense and the hands up of his opponents. He ducks right underneath that shot, gets right in on the double leg, gets you to the ground. He's got excellent control. He'll take the back. He'll look for the submissions. And I would say out of the two, he's probably the more competent in terms of technique in the striking. Silva will throw a couple of wild kicks and things like that. Outside of a Hail Mary submission, I don't see De Silva being able to get this one done. I think this is an easy stylistic matchup here for Rajabov. As long as he minds his P's and Q's and just stays safe, I think he should get this one done with the wrestling. And next up, we have Demba Sek taking on Curtis Campbell. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
Going with Pinky, Curtis Campbell. Okay. He might be a little upset. He may not be able to wear all that pink stuff on the Contender Series. I know it's going to break my heart too, but I'm going with Campbell because Sek is a strong featherweight. Looks to finish wherever the fight goes, whether it's submission or strikes. Decent takedowns, but one of the things that the reason why I'm going with Campbell is the fact that when he's taking guys down, he's being very technical about it, and he has good weight distribution, good control on top. With Sek, when he takes guys down, he's using a lot of strength, a lot of power, and when he gets up, he's not very technical. He also is using a lot of power and strength in those positions as well, which just leads me to believe that he's doing a good job at this point now where he's at in that regional scene. But when it comes to Campbell, he thinks he's going to be a little bit more complete on the ground. And Sek's striking isn't anything crazy. Like if he hits you, he's probably going to hurt you because he's got a lot of muscle packed on that frame. But I think that Campbell's going to do enough to be able to get him to the ground and probably control him, because a lot of times, like, I don't think he's fighting the best competition, but I think he's fought better competition than Sek, and I think he's going to be able to hold him down, control him, and look for the submission. So I'm going to go with Campbell, and I think he can get it done. I think a possible submission, but I at least know that he can keep himself out of harm's way and control Sek on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, pretty short breakdown for me here. I think Carlos nailed it here. I see this fight going the exact same way. When you watch Sek, I think the questionable level of competition out of the two, not to say that he's fought bad competition, but I do agree with Carlos. I think Campbell's definitely fought the tougher level of competition. Both guys very competent on the feet. I think Campbell tries to sort of be a little bit more measured than Sek. Sek will throw some, spinning attacks. He's a little bit more looping. Sometimes he'll spam certain shots. I see him one fight, he throws like the right hand straight down the pipe 3 times in a row. His opponent literally just eats all 3 of them, doesn't move his head in the slightest. Sek will initiate takedowns, but I agree with Carlos's sentiment that he is more, muscle bound in the way that he uses his technique. It's not necessarily technique; it's more you're just trying to drag guys to the ground with muscle. That'll wear on him over the course of the whole fight. And one of the things I liked about Campbell, that's just why I'm going to pick him here, is the grappling. He will get you on top. He will look to get in dominant positions. He'll look to beat you up. He'll look for the submissions once he's got you hurt. He's got measured pressure. And I like that about him. I think in this fight, I could see him implementing some grappling. I think Sek could get worn down. If he defends the first early few takedowns, he's going to have to knock Campbell out early, because I think as the fight goes on, he's going to wear down, he's going to slow down. Campbell's going to implement his game plan with the grappling and ultimately find a submission maybe late in round 2, maybe even round 3 here. I do like Curtis Campbell to get the finish. He looked pretty impressive. Obviously 23 years old, fighting out of the MMA Academy in Liverpool. And obviously Liverpool known for some Scouser grapplers up there, and I'm sure that there's been moments where he's been able to train with them as well. We're talking about the Paddy Pimlet crew. I like him to get this fight to the ground, ultimately use his grappling and get this one done, as long as he stays safe early, avoids the power of Sek, which I think he does have the power to put Campbell out early with his athleticism and his power, but I ultimately think this one gets to the ground. We find the submission here. Campbell gets it done. And next up, we have 2 names that I'm definitely going to butcher. We have Elijah Kumbaza taking on Christopher Alvarez. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this matchup?
I am going to go with Elijah Kubanza. I just think that, Kubanza, he's another one, heavily muscled for the 170-pound class. Strong, tough fighter. When I say tough, I've seen him in some of those videos that I watched take some solid shots without trying to block, without trying to move his head, without trying to move his feet. And he ate them pretty good. And there was some hard shots coming in. he'll keep walking down his opponent, even though he's taking some shots. I'm not too happy about that, but that's something he's going to have to work on. I also watched the fact that he fought against a former Sambo world champion, combat Sambo world champion. And with all the throws and all the submissions and the striking advantages that this guy did have, Cubanza was able to control him, get back to his feet when he hit the ground, and was able to control him in the bottom position. So to me, I think that to pretty much outwork a world champion grappler, even though it's not, combat sambo is pretty close to MMA as you're going to get. To control somebody and have that much success against someone like that, when it comes to Alvarez, I really don't think that he's going to be a problem for Cubanza. Now, Alvarez, he's not a bad fighter. I didn't see too much on it, but he doesn't carry the same sting as Cubanza. He doesn't have that same type of power. Cubanza, he's been fighting for a short period of time, and his wrestling does look pretty damn good. Once he gets a good body lock, he's going to get you down. I've seen him get guys down with single legs in some of his fights, and with a very technical style to it, not just physical and strength. So he's not really working too hard. He has the strength to do it, but he has the technique to make it a little easier on himself. So I think Alvarez is going to have a lot to work with, keeping himself off the mat. And once he gets Cubanza down, if he does, keeping him down there and punishing him, I think Cubanza is going to have the upper hand on the ground and on the feet. So I'm going with him for this one.
Yeah, I got to say, out of all of the fights that I broke down this week, after watching tape study, I was probably the most impressed with Cubanza. I know exactly what fight Carlos is talking about with that World Sambo champion. I was kind of surprised. The takedown defense is there. When he got him up against the fence, he did a good job of, pummeling and getting off the fence. And at range, he stands and, switches stances. He likes to fight out of southpaw. He'll blast that rear kick to the gut and also throw it up top to the head kick. I was impressed with Cubanza overall. I think this is definitely going to be somebody to watch inside the UFC. Ultimately, I think this one is going to be, as I've said before, in many fights, one-way traffic. I wasn't that impressed with Christopher. Wild striking, unorthodox technique at times. I think the level of competition is very questionable. He overextends, which I think is going to leave himself very vulnerable for a guy that is definitely the more, probably harder hitter out of the two, along with being the more technical fighter in Cubanza. I think overextending against this guy, Cubanza, is going to end up getting your lights put out. And even at times, I noticed with Christopher, he'll when he throws a kick, he'll bring his hands down as well. So I just worry about this guy. I think this is a very nice matchup for Cubanza. I think this is some of the people that he's fought on the regional scene. I think that this is probably a little bit of a step down almost for him. I wasn't impressed with Christopher at all. And like Carlos even mentioned with the grappling, I think if this fight ends up hitting the ground, I've seen with Cubanza that he had a very nice takedown in one of his previous fights where his opponent started to get tired. He was defending all of the takedowns. He was able to get a big sort of slam takedown in the second round. And ultimately, I was pretty sold on him when I watched tape. So I think this should ultimately be a finish here. I think we should be looking at a contract for Cubanza here to get this one done. Christopher's probably going to go out in the first round. That's going to be my prediction. And that brings us to the co-main event here on Dana White's Contender Series. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down Magno Diaz taking on Luis Jourdain. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this matchup?
Okay, yeah, I haven't picked yet, but I'm going to go through everything. Because at first I picked Jourdain. He looked very smooth, very comfortable on his feet. He's had kickboxing at the pro level. He's had some boxing matches on the pro level. He looks very, very sharp on his feet. He's quick. A lot of the opponents that he's fought, he's been a little bit taller, a little bit longer. So he's able to use his quick in and out, snap some strikes, and then get out. I ultimately thought that Diaz was going to have a problem with that because I watched the two fights of his, and he looked very lackluster on the feet, but on the ground, he looked to be very competent and very capable of submitting someone like Jourdain. Jourdain is also, that he's lost by submission, but that's been like about 4 or 5 years now. I'm sure he's been working on it, correcting it over the years. And his technique has obviously gotten better, even with the takedown defense, as you've seen in some of his fights. But then I saw 2 fights with Diaz where he looked like an absolute world beater on the feet. He's throwing tight, sharp hooks. He's throwing nice short straights. His kicks have like they don't loop all the way out. He just turns his hip and whap. He's ripping his opponent to the body, to the leg, and those are in his last two fights, as opposed to the ones I saw prior to that. So I don't really know who's coming in here, but I'm thinking Fighting Nerds are a good team. But if you're pairing him up against someone where he's going to have the advantage standing up, as long as he pushes the pace, you're going to look good. But his technique looked good on the feet. If that's what he did in such a short period of time, I'd like to take Diaz, but I haven't seen the full fight, so I don't know if he was able to get the better or tired, or maybe they were just lesser opponents. So I'm going to go with Jourdain. I think he can get this done. He does have a lot of advantages on the feet, technically, but I tell you, Diaz looked like, after looking like a fish out of water, 2 fights later, he looks like a world beater. So I wouldn't be surprised if he can get this done too. But I'm going to keep Jourdain in this one.
Yeah, Carlos and I spoke about this matchup before we went live, and most of the tape that I saw as well when we were talking about it was with Diaz. He looked like that fish out of water as well. So I haven't necessarily seen this high level tape or his improvement in his striking. So I felt a lot more confident. I felt like than Carlos is in Jourdain. So I'm going to pick him here. But when you talk about Diaz, like Carlos mentioned, obviously over at the Fighting Nerds and the success that they had up until this previous couple of weeks. Maybe Diaz helps him get back in the win column. Maybe he's the guy to do it. Maybe these improvements, he's on a mission to put the glasses back on and get them front and center inside the UFC. But to me, he walks down as a shorter fighter. I don't think he's going to be able to have that forward pressure against a guy like Jourdain, who has the better striking to me in this matchup. He is good at scrambling on the ground. When fights do hit the mat, he does a good job of being able to get into dominant positions. He doesn't accept bottom position. He's always looking to kind of, he's not going to be one of these guys that's going to play jiu-jitsu off of his back. He's going to look to scramble, look to sweep, looking to get into dominant positions. But to me, he is just more of a grappler. When I see his striking, sometimes there's a little bit looping. Obviously, he is short, especially in this matchup. He's going to be the much shorter fighter. And to me, I feel like he leaves a little bit, to be desired in the striking. He leaves openings that I definitely feel like a guy like Jourdain could definitely capitalize on, unless he comes in, like Carlos said, like, Diaz 2.0. When you talk about Jourdain, much better striker I've got here in the notes. Nice boxing combinations, really does a good job with a step-in uppercut. Really, really nice forward pressure. He does a good job of blasting kicks to all 3 levels. I think he'll chew up the calf of Diaz, in my opinion. He likes also, when he gets into the clinch, he'll throw knees in that sort of tie clinch. And he does a good job of ducking under with double legs as well if he wants to mix in the grappling. I think that would be a mistake in this matchup to mix in any grappling. I think Diaz, you'd give him a chance here if he mixes in grappling. I think Jourdain's the much better striker. The technique on the feet, to me, is worlds apart from the tape that I've seen. I think as well that if Jourdain comes into this matchup and decides to grapple with the height and reach advantage that he has, I think he's a fool. When you look at the tape with Jourdain as well, he does a good job of being able to mix everything in. He's not necessarily just head hunting in his combinations. He will go upstairs, come up, go to the body. He'll rip the lead calf at the end of the combinations. And overall, I was impressed with him. Unless Diaz shows me something I've not seen on tape, I'm going to be fairly confident in Jourdain this week. But who knows? Dana White's Contender Series can sometimes be full of surprises. I've been wrong in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong here. Fighting Nerds might get one back, but we'll see in this matchup, going with Jourdain to get this one done with the striking. And as always, that brings us to the main event here on Dana White's Contender Series Week 8. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we break this fight down. We've got Damian Pinus taking on Victor Costa. That's right, I said Pinus. Carlos, who you got in this matchup?
I think I'm going to go with Costa in this one. And the reason being is Damian doesn't really look that, yes, I'm not going to say his last name, but Damian looks like he's, it's not that he's like a bad fighter, but his striking doesn't look very impressive, I guess, Costa's only looks more impressive because he's coming at you with some high volume. He's going to make you work. And I think that pace, putting it on him, it will probably get him tired. He might make Damian start throwing maybe some bigger shots, and if he doesn't land, he's going to start getting gassed. And I think that's when Costa's probably going to, even though he does have a high output rate, then he's going to take it to the next level and hit another gear and start attacking. But to me, Damian looks like he can wrestle decently. I feel Costa would probably best him on the ground when it comes to jiu-jitsu, because he does have some good jiu-jitsu finishes. I would say that the movement of Costa is probably going to cause a problem for him too. Even though he's always walking toward guys, like it's not like he's got good head movement. It's not like he moves his feet a lot. He's always moving towards them, and his in and out movement is the one thing that I'm talking about. What I don't like about this is the fact that Costa doesn't really try to block anything. He doesn't really try to move out the way. So he does end up eating some punches. But against Damian, I don't know. Like I don't think he's that kind of guy that throws things hard, like shots hard all the time. So I don't know if that's something Costa's got to worry about. But I have seen him get buckled in a couple of fights. You could tell when he gets hit, the legs go a little stiff, but then he's able to shake it off real quickly. So I'm going to go with Costa. I think he's got the cardio to, recover, and I think he's got the volume to overwhelm Damian.
Yeah, I'm going with Costa here as well. I do have my concerns for Costa. I think he's definitely the better fighter in this matchup, but I agree with the sentiment that Carlos has here, that he's a little bit overly aggressive at times, can leave himself a little bit exposed, especially with the striking. But I don't necessarily see enough out of Damian for him to capitalize. He's not this guy that, he's not a technician. He's not sitting back on a right hand and countering you. He's more of I think he relies more on his athleticism than his actual ability to fight. When you look at Costa, he's pretty much trying to walk you down the whole entire fight, heavy forward pressure. And to me, like Carlos did also mention as well, in the grappling, I think Costa can have his way in the grappling here. I've seen in a few fights where Costa will jump or at least fish for a guillotine if he doesn't go for it. If his opponent tries to mix in some grappling, he will seek out that neck for the gilly as well. And he doesn't necessarily throw a ton of kicks, so most of the pressure that he's throwing is coming from the hands. He's kind of walking you down, throwing those extended combinations, and I think at times he does leave himself open to be countered from a nice sort of straight, right hand or a straight shot from his opponent. With Damian, like I mentioned, he's not necessarily looking to throw those type of shots. He is more of a kickboxer, not looking to initiate the grappling a whole lot. He lacks a little bit of takedown defense as well. I think if Costa wants to make this one easy, he gets this one to the ground and ultimately finds a submission. Damian, to me, has shown an ability to get back to his feet based off of athleticism as opposed to technique. He tries to muscle through positions to get back to his feet. I think he has a nice 1-2 down the pipe. I think that he can stay technical. I think he could definitely find the counter shot, but from a lot of the fights that I've seen, he's knocking guys out on the regional scene that don't necessarily have a whole lot to offer him back. He will blast kicks from the outside as well, but which will be a good weapon against a guy in Costa who only really throws the hands. But I think Costa's really going to get this one done. I think he's probably going to maybe mix in the grappling, ultimately find a submission. I think that's the best path to victory, but I could also see him maybe hurting Damian on the feet with his pressure, with volume. But obviously that would leave Costa exposed, like I said. But 2 for Costa here. But Damian definitely could pull off the upset because Costa does leave himself open, like I mentioned. And that's what we have time for here on the Ground and Pound podcast. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we pass things over to Carlos. Is there anything you want to say to the people?
No, I'm just going to say I hope you guys enjoy the show, and try to keep it as entertaining and exciting as we can. So if you like it, if you like the information, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, and just to let everybody know on the channel, if you enjoyed this video, we've got the Alex Pereira versus Ankalaev rematch coming up. We're going to do a full card breakdown for that, of course, and along with the PFL Challenger Series, Hughes versus Magomedov as well. So check out those videos coming to you on the channel. And as always, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.